Okay, so opinions on Spook Shack are honestly all over the place. Some people think they're just this random group mashed together, which is fair, I guess. This ended up a few people only liking several members of the group instead as a whole. But I also get the hype. There's something about them that's just straight up fun and really gives those teenagers vibes, so some people still end up loving them anyway. Not to mention they do have the found family tropes similar to Cunning Heirs. However, I'm not about to go on some rant about how I personally feel about Spook Shack, but just looking at them, I get why Lucia, Hidari, and Yuzuha are in the same group. They've all got this thing for creating spooky stories, which lines up perfectly with the whole Spook Shack persona. Alice makes sense too, even though she's a bit of a scaredy cat, she pretty much follows Yuzuha after everything they've been through together. But Manato though, even if he's one of the OGs, you could say, you don't really see him super into the whole Spook Shack scene. It's not like he's obsessed with their paranormal adventures or anything, and he's the one low-key throwing shade, calling them out for always talking about bizarre stuff. And when it's time to do their rituals or chant something, Manato is that awkward guy who forgets his lines as a Spook Shack member. And there's really no crazy deep lore why Manato ended up in Spook Shack, unless you count Yuzuha probably blackmailing him because she's covering for him skipping class for work. Though honestly, he could have just said no. It's funny because if you look at other factions, the only man in the group usually has this legit or dramatic reason. Like Lighter still got dads to Big Daddy, Billy finally found a purpose instead of just being an aimless weapon, and Harumasa, well, it's literally his job that he applied for. It's a similar case that goes to others that aren't mentioned. But again, Manato, he's already booked and busy. A father of two, working countless part-time jobs while still studying and joining a club that he couldn't care less what they're on about. From this perspective, it sort of makes sense why Spook Shack members feel out of place sometimes. And that is what I actually want to talk about, since I promised to yap about Manato more because I love him. After finishing the recent 2.3 quest, Manato isn't really that much of a complex character in my most humble opinion, and his story was quite straightforward yet heartwarming. But what is a kit yappathon on a character analysis without digging deeper? I know some people are going to call me out, it's not really that deep, but I personally think that's the joy in fandom culture, where we get to talk about different perspectives and reflect on the story in new ways. It's how we keep the story alive and the whole narrative moving. And here's a big spoiler. Despite all the contradictions I mentioned earlier, I think Manato's presence in Spook Shack actually fits him quite well. In fact, I'd go so far as to say Spook Shack might be exactly what Manato needs. So let us first talk about little Manato. He lost his family at a very young age in the fall of the old capital. He then grew up alone in Waifei Peninsula, scrambling to survive however he could. He couldn't even afford vegetables back then, let alone anything close to a real meal. With nowhere to go and nothing to his name, Manato ended up running with a gang that called themselves the White Heart. You know, as an 8-year-old boy, running into a sketchy gang actually looked kinda cool. Manato probably thought he was joining the Avengers, but instead he got the discount version where his superpower was fit through small holes. But this was also the closest thing to a family he'd seen since everything went downhill. So why not try to earn his spot by bravely squishing through dusty cracks and pretending not to cry? Until one time, the hollow ether levels go absolutely bonkers. The boss just splits the loot and tells Manato, "Thanks for your unpaid labor, get lost." From that on, Manato soon figured out he was never really one of them. They called him bro when it suited them, but when he was no longer useful, he was dead weight. It made perfect sense that young Manato made a promise to himself. He didn't need friends, didn't need to trust anybody, and only needed to fight for himself. And that one day, when he got stronger, he'd roll back up to the White Heart Gang and show those jerks who's actually boss. Revenge was the goal he chased for years, but at some point, he crossed paths with two kids, Ting and Ayuet, and ended up adopting them as siblings. Since then, the three of them lived together as a family. Having always longed for that sense of belonging, he has a soft spot for being called brother. And through the kids, he learned that it isn't just an empty title. As he grew, he had a change of heart. The anger that once drove him to chase revenge slowly turned into something gentler with a desire to protect.
I won't stop. It doesn't matter if I'm not the one in front stealing the spotlight. I'll stay behind, watching their backs. It isn't about some grand ideal or noble reason. I just can't stand to see them hurt. That's a pretty pathetic dream.
I mean, the drown ideal isn't wrong, at least not from their logic. Their worldview was built on strength, pride, and survival. Manato's new dream only seems pathetic if you believe strength exists to hurt. Manato isn't trying to prove he's stronger than his past, but he's trying to make sure no one else has to live through it. That's why, to him, it's worth it, because revenge can fill your ego, but protection fills your heart. And that's why Manato's story lays a great message and resonates most with people in that in-between stage of life, whether late teens, early adulthood, or anyone realizing that the way they used to define strength or success doesn't fit anymore. Because when you think about it, when we're young, we dream so much conviction that adults like to call naive. Sometimes it's from pain, jealousy, or desperation. You wanted to be strong because you wanted to kick some ass. You wanted to be famous because you were always left out from the group. You want to be rich because you thought having every toy in the world would finally make people want to play with you. It sounds stupid now, but it made sense back then. These dreams all sound big, but the reasons behind them are simple. When you're a kid, you dream of compensation. It's not because you crave control or status, but you just want things to feel seen and to finally have a fair chance in life. Yet, we shouldn't erase or try to forget them, because every foolish dream once served a purpose. Whatever your drown ideal or dream may be, it was born from something real. Those old dreams, no matter how misguided or dramatic they were, still carry fragments of who you are. They show what you valued before the world told you what was practical. And perhaps, maybe what you wanted wasn't wrong. Maybe it just needed to grow with you.
Now it's all you. I know. Go and show me for real. A dream that's truly worth it for Komodo Manato. But wherever you go, don't forget me.
Most of our old dreams don't really change at the core. What changes is why we chase them. When you're young, those dreams are mostly self-centered because your world is small. It only fits you and your needs. But as you grow, your world expands. You start to see people, places, and responsibilities outside of yourself. The things you once wanted for validation slowly becomes things you want for meaning. You still want strength, not to win, but to protect. You still want success, not to prove something, but to build something. You still want connection, not just to be seen, but to understand others too. And that's what makes growing up bittersweet. Realizing that your childhood dreams weren't lies, just incomplete and underdeveloped. Like Manato said, it's a big world out there. He's not running from his old self. He's guiding that small, angry kid towards something better, and there's way more other things worth pursuing beyond revenge. But growing up isn't something that happens overnight, and it shouldn't be. Sure, it sounds awesome when you get to a stage where you finally figured out everything. We all have that phase where we can't wait to grow up because we think growing up means more freedom. We can do whatever we want. Then we got older, and it's not what we pictured at all. Freedom comes with bills, exhaustion, and fitting into society that's often draining. We start realizing that growing up mostly just means learning how to stay functional. That's exactly why having space and freedom as a kid matters so much. much. Being a young kid, it shouldn't be about meeting endless deadlines or being perfectly responsible, but trying to squeeze every ounce of fun out of a day, running wild and sometimes just seeking where our curiosity takes us. These moments shapes us as they give us the confidence to take risks and the chance to learn who we are without pressure. All those carefree days do more to build a foundation for the kind of adult we want to be. Unfortunately, Manato never got the luxury to ease into adulthood like most people. He was shoved straight into the cold world alone, having to learn responsibility before he even had the chance to be a kid. It is the main reason that has shaped him to be reliable and steady and the one who stays behind to cover the team. But Manato also shows the cost of maturity we don't really talk about enough. I get why Manato is hyped as husband material because I see that too. And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not shaming anyone, like I literally agree with that. He deserves every bit of praise, every free stuff from the market vendors, and our love. But then I also remember, he's barely out of his teens. Manato stands out as the mature and dependable member of the group, someone others can lean on even though he's barely out of adolescence. While many see this as a positive quality, his maturity is also a symptom of pressures and responsibilities that have made him grow up far too soon. And that is the crux of this video. Nobody asked for that much responsibility so young, and honestly, there's nothing glamorous about having your youth swallowed by work and obligations. It makes us wonder why we romanticize maturity so early when, in reality, it looks a lot more like exhaustion than empowerment. Manato's narrative implicitly tells about how we keep praising composure and self-sacrifice in young people, calling it maturity, when most of the time it's just survival. The real message here isn't to pity him, but to question why we glorify struggle as strength. Why do we treat exhaustion like a sign of character and independence like proof of worth, specifically among children and young people? Obviously, the reasons behind all this runs deep, from economic pressure to rigid education systems and societal values that equate worth with productivity. It's not a problem with a simple fix, but the first step is just noticing it, realizing that growing up too fast isn't just how it is. It's something we've normalized without thinking. And once we see that, we can start asking better questions to save future generations. And that's not to say struggle and hardship aren't important, because they are. They both build resilience and often teach life lessons to grow better. It's not the presence of hardship itself that's the issue, but how early and how often it's forced onto those who haven't even had the time to just be young. Children shouldn't have to earn rest by burning out first. They shouldn't have to prove they're worthy of love or respect by trying to carry responsibilities like adults. Youth isn't supposed to be a performance competence. It's supposed to be a process of becoming. It's the time to make mistakes, to be unsure, to figure things out slowly. That's why we shouldn't rush through youth. The process of growth, self-discovery, and identity exploration is something you can never easily get back. Like Manato, some kids grow up believing that they have to keep everything in order all the time until there's no room to do trial and error. And when that type of strength often gets praised, it becomes even harder to question whether it was ever fair to begin with. We can see how the game actually shows subtle signs of Manato's struggle, having to grow up too fast. I mean, his grades are struggling to keep up due to all that packed schedule for one, but another thing is how he's easily affected, like small mistakes hit him harder because he's carrying a heavy load that most teens don't face. And that leads to Manato being vulnerable to doubt himself. Even though he's doing pretty well, he still compares himself. He looks at Banyue's strength or Lycon's polished maturity and wonders if he's falling short. It's less about him being weak, honestly, and more because he never had the space to grow into who he wants to be. And that's why Manato fits into Spook Shack perfectly. Even though he's surrounded by people his age, he still acts like he's the oldest one there. I mean, even Wise, who's way older than him, hides behind Manato whenever things get spooky. Mostly, Manato Manato grounds them and keeps the group on track because that's just who he is. But that's also the irony. The more he tries to act like the responsible one, the more it shows how out of touch he is with what being young actually feels like. Spook Shack is full of people who are impulsive, emotional, and still learning how to deal with their own mess. After years of independence, he ends up with a bunch of chaotic weirdos who remind him it's okay to just live and vibe. Compared to his past, he's now just being a kid among kids. He's probably not passionate about ghosts or stories, but can finally be around people who don't expect him to be the strong one all the time. And through their goofy adventures, he gets to be more sure of what he wants to become after facing his drown ideal. Like I said, Manato's story is pretty straightforward, but sets a great message. On the surface, it gives off that teenage energy, like the weird mix of friendship, recklessness, and growing pains, but underneath, it's a story that still speaks to us long after we've grown up. No matter how old we get, we still need spaces that let us feel young again. Spook Shack, for all its chaos and randomness, becomes a mirror for showing that youth and maturity don't need to cancel each other out. You can be dependable and still lost, grown up and still searching, tired but still capable of dreaming. And for Manato, sure, husband material. And as much as I want to project fully on that, I think calling him brother would suit him best for now.